You guys can come and tune in with us every third
Thursday of the month.
Look, I was supposed to remind you of my bad. I forgot. I forgot to tell you that you was doing this part.
It's the third Thursday, right?
Third Thursday, Saturday.
I was about to say the first Thursday.
So, hey, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Chris Colston. I'm joined by Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, and Laria Reed, and we are Four Friends in a Book. So, Four Friends in a Book is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together, and we discuss any current or relevant topics that may or may not relate to that book. So, somewhat of a book review and just table talk amongst friends. So, first and foremost, if you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe. We would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on all social media platforms and give us some feedback. You know, if you guys have any book recommendations or topics you want to hear us discuss on Four Friends in a Book, we would definitely love to hear from you guys. So hit us up. We're going to jump right into it. The book for this month, big book. In the nonfiction category, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. The epic story of America's Great Migration, the greatest untold story of the 20th century, where she uses firsthand accounts of Ida Mae Gladney, which was from Mississippi, George Starling, which was from Florida, and Robert Foster, which was from Louisiana. And she used these individuals to tell the story of their process, I guess, as far as migrating from out of the South, up north, out west. And she just really just gives a great job of capturing that old concept.
Yes.
For me, it's kind of reminiscent of just having a discussion or a talk with your grandparents or your great grandparents, and just hearing their story. And it's just in that book form. So again, Isabel does a account of these three individuals and mixes in a lot of historical facts and things of this whole period of the Great Migration between 1915 and 1975. What characters or who was your, I guess, the character that she utilized, which one stood out to you the most, I guess, throughout this book?
Okay. Well, of course, my favorite character was Robert Joseph Pershing Foster. He was most memorable to me. And he was the son of a high school principal and a teacher, the youngest of four siblings. Robert, he got his first start because his oldest brother, Madison, was a doctor already. So Robert came from, esteemed background. So they wanted to instill a lot in him so that when he was able to enter and matriculate to Morehouse College. And in Atlanta is where he actually met his wife, Alice. And, Alice was the daughter of Atlanta University president already. So him and his wife, they actually ended up getting married. So they actually moved to Tennessee. And that's what actually Robert went to medical school. He went to Meharry Medical College. And I say all that to just say this. Even with Robert, all his connection that he's had, he was actually still subjected to Jim Crow and the laws that followed him through every state that he went through. And these were the 1930s. So just imagine this black guy, he's actually coming up into the world and he's still subjected and can't feel like he can't escape from all this. Robert's earlier years as a surgeon, all he could do was basically, do urine samples and actually take blood pressure. Robert even went to the U.S. Army and, his superiors wouldn't even allow him to actually see and visit white patients. They discredit his abilities, as a surgeon. And, from where he started to where he ended and he matriculated through, the progress of being one of the top surgeons of the United States, that was most memorable to me. And that's why, I felt that I connected with him as, one of the good characters in this book.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Robert, again, starts out in Monroe, Louisiana. And as Isaiah mentioned, he takes this journey, going to college in Atlanta, going to medical school, joining the Army, being deployed, going overseas, and still having these hardships as far as trying to progress within his career, and finally deciding to take his talents out west and move to California, only to get out there and face additional hardships. So good account of that. Maria, I'm coming to you next. Who was your most memorable character within this book?
Okay, well, I liked all three for various reasons. I like Robert, Ida, and George, but George I resonated the most with. And let me just say this about this book. It is, of course, it's a historical book, but it's extremely heavy for me. And I was telling you guys, like the stories that they were giving, even from each one of them was just like, I kept having to stop because it was just so, woo. But with George, I identified with him. And I think because he went to college, he was a sharecropper's child. And then his father was able to send him to Florida A&M during that time. And that was kind of like, I mean, you think of first generation going to college as being a big deal, but that was a huge deal to send your child in, because that was labor, that was money that you could be having, helping you, and the money that you were using to send your child to school. So for me, that was a huge deal. And it kind of made me reflect on my own life. Like, I just took for granted, oh, I'm going to college. All right, I'm going on. My father, we can get student loans and just go. But for him, it was like, that was a major thing to leave from where they were. And then for him to get there and then have to come back because his money had run out. And it was just so like gut wrenching. And I'm just thinking, because of the fact that I've gone to college, I was putting myself in those shoes. Like, what would it be like to be going to FAMU? Basically, you're in a college setting, you're good, and then have to go back to picking cotton or doing whatever the sharecropping was for that time. So I kind of identified more with his story. That was probably the only thing I could identify with any of their stories, because they were so just, and we'll get into talking about more of that, but just gut wrenching, the things that they had to go through to be who they were, just to live day to day, especially being a Black man. You could wake up and just be lynched for walking down the street because they thought you did something. So I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, George was my favorite person. I really enjoyed his character.
Yeah, I agree. George was another good story. All right, Miss Lake, who's your most memorable character in the book?
So for me, I have to agree with Isaiah. Robert was my favorite character. And anytime I read a book and somebody is like a dreamer, I kind of just relate to them because I'm that way. And Robert had that drive and that dream in him to be better and do better, always. Like Isaiah said, he was a doctor, but he was relegated to doing urine samples or just being out of the country. He couldn't see white people. And he always, in spite of what he faced, he always in his head was like, okay, I need more. He was always trying to elevate himself. And even when he got out to California, and he was trying to build his practice, he still had to face discrimination, not only from whites, but people that knew him that, back in Louisiana, they didn't want to see him because they thought a white doctor would be better. So he was always hustling, trying to be better than what he was and what he knew he could be. Now, was he a little flashy? And, sometimes he had, trying to buy cars and all that. Yeah. But under all of that, it's because he knew that's where he should have been always. So I like Robert because I'm a dreamer, and if he could do it, that motivates me to believe I can do it, especially with his circumstances that he faced in his life. So he was my favorite story in the book.
That's true.
Good. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, man. I like them all. This book was right up my alley. I love history. I love African American history, and just to hear these stories. My girl Ida Mae, she from Mississippi, I'm a Mississippi boy, so there was a lot of connecting pieces with that. Just hearing her and her husband's story, and just really the hardship they're facing and some of the injustices they're seeing that was really the driving force for them to leave Mississippi to go to greener pastures, which they thought may have been greener pastures. Everybody talking about Robert from Monroe, Louisiana. So I got connection with that. My dad's side of the family is from Monroe. So even just his story, his journey to try to advance his education, to try to advance his economic standing, was very. It just resonated with me a lot as well. And George, again, just a young guy trying to make it. Being known as professor, just a smart guy trying to get an education, but really just having the hardships of having to, I guess, being forced to kind of work and give up on that dream that he had, but still pushing to make through and make the best of even those guys picking oranges and fruits and other things to try to make the best of that situation. So I just talked about our favorite characters, but even reading the book, and again, Isabel, she takes you on this journey of these three individuals and their migration from the South to whether they're going up north or out west, and that whole, I guess, story and some things you may have known about historically as well. But were there any, I guess, surprises or new revelations that you gathered from the book? Larry, I know you mentioned it was heavy. But were there any new revelations or any surprises that you may have not have been aware of prior to reading the book?
I'll go. Well, I think it's one thing to hear stories, but to hear an account from someone, like a testimony, is completely different. So I had heard about how sharecroppers would kind of cheat former slaves out of their money and all that. But to hear you put in all of this money and then you get to the end of the crop or whatnot, and then they say, "Oh, we're even now." So you basically just work their land for free. It's just mind-boggling the things that they had to go through with just. I mean, it was. I can't remember which one it was because it was so many stories to me where one of them had to run back in the house or so. I can't remember if it was a story when they were younger or not, but just even walking on the sidewalk, just hearing, well, not hearing, but reading and hearing. I listen on Audible, but hearing the accounts and the stories of how they just went through, how volatile their lives were. I mean, it was just like you're almost like a dog day to day, like what's going to happen to me today. And I mean, and we think about our lives being the way they are now, but compared to that was just horrible to have to live like that. So I understand the migration. I understand saying, you know what, y'all can have all of this. I'm gone. I get it. I understand that. So yeah, it was just so many. And I encourage people to really read this book. But for me, it was extremely heavy because I have a very sensitive spirit. So I can't read a lot back to back of all of that. But it was like story after story after story after story that was just so detrimental to their lives. And it wasn't just a situation, it was systematic. And I think we're going to get into that. But it just was like a system of you're not a slave anymore, but you're still a slave. And I just can't believe people can sleep at night doing folks like that. It was ridiculous. So that was many of my my accounts from what stuck out to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was definitely a lot. Isaiah, you want to jump in next? So.
Yes, sir. What most surprising to me was that even though Ida, George, and Robert, they all came from different backgrounds, they all had one common goal: is to be free and to be set free and to do what they want to do. And you read so many stories, throughout the book where, Black people that were actually trying to leave into migration, that they were just actually forced off of trains, tearing up train tickets, and just couldn't be able to just actually breathe and free and move about how they want to be. And when you're reading these stories, you think about, is this modern day slavery that was actually going on, that these people just want to just be free, live their lives and do the best of what they can do, to push their family forward. So that was, one of the stories that were most surprising to me. And, towards like the end of the revelation was that you even read where the people that actually migrated up to the north, that they even refused to even accept government assistance. Like they was hard workers. Like they felt that if they can do it and then they can move forward and they can move into these different environments, that no, that they're gonna make it happen, even if they have to move into different homes and share families. We heard about I read about where families actually share like in different homes and different flats until they can find something else. And if you want to send your family up, they will live with you until they can actually move into a house. So I just saw the elegance in that, where no man is actually left behind. Like if I'm free, I want to free my whole family. And that was just the most revelation to me that I actually read throughout the story.
Okay, good. Good. All right, Kim, what do you have?
For me, it was like two things. So one was like Isaiah was saying, like when people were trying to leave the South, like reading the stories, it was almost like you had to escape slavery in a way. So it's like you can't buy a train ticket in the same town you're at because they're gonna know you're leaving, and like you can't tell people you're leaving. And even though people were leaving, they were trying to send people up north to like round them up and send them back to the South, because the South knew that they're like, we can't let these people leave because like we depend on their labor. So it was just eye-opening for me, because I was thinking like if you wanted to move to the north, you just move, but they really had to keep it like on the down low. And it was like reading their stories, I was stressed out. I was like, I hope they make it out. And then the second part was, in school you hear about Jim Crow laws, but reading how much it affected like every part of your daily life, that it was almost making me like suffocate reading it, because you couldn't be human. Like you have to get off the sidewalk, don't look people in the eye. When they're talking about the ice cream shop, like if somebody white comes in, you got to get it to the end of the line, and putting up with all those laws, because you hear about the water fountains and sitting in the back of the bus. And even on the bus, like if more white people came on, then they moved that sign back, so like all the black people had to be in the back of the bus. So just realizing how much Jim Crow affected like every aspect of your life and how suffocating and demeaning that is for a person to deal with. Those are the two things that really stuck out to me in the book, because I read about it, but hearing the actual stories and accounts really made it real and really showed how deep and wide it went.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. The book was a lot of revelations for me in reading the book. Again, of course, I grew up in the South. I got cousins in Chicago, St. Louis, California. So I've always known about people leaving the South and going up north and going out west. But I don't think I really knew the intricate details as far as the Great Migration itself. That there are actually people from up north coming down to the South to recruit people, to work. And that, like Kim mentioned, you had this diminishing workforce in the South, and they were getting upset because now they don't have people to work. During the time periods of, we're in World War I and World War II, where, our soldiers are out fighting, and now we need to make, machines and weapons and other things to support that effort. And so there was a new, I guess, influx of Black workers from the South now getting these, industrial jobs and being able to work in these areas that are outside of, the field that they may have been working in the South, and people actually coming down to recruit them and pay for that. But even hearing the great extent that people had to go through to get there. I mean, shipping themselves in boxes, hiding coffins, like you guys mentioned, just to sneak away, because it was, it was such a troubling time and a period where you didn't really have complete control over your life. And again, I've talked to my parents, grandparents. I've heard some of these stories, but it's just, it was a lot to kind of even read it in this form, and to kind of see some of those details, even when people actually made it to the North and then facing new issues or different, I guess, set of problems and injustices. So, it wasn't at the north and or moving out west was just your this grand escape. It's just now you had different problems or new problems in those areas. So it was a lot of good information. And again, Isabel does a great job. She even covers areas outside of the book itself. She referenced my hometown a few times. I was shocked and surprised to see that even popped up. We would have known that Meridian, Mississippi would have been in the book. So again, there's a lot. And like I said, if you guys love history, non-fictions, I think this is a good book for you to read. So yeah, good talk, guys. I appreciate y'all input.
Good talk, Chris.
All right, so look, we about to transition. We segue into that favorite segment y'all always waiting on. We have it each episode, the rant. It's our time period where we give 60 seconds uninterrupted. We're not debating, we're not contesting. We're allowing one of our friends to speak from the heart, whatever may be on their mind, whatever they may be thinking about at that moment, and they just speak freely. And so we're coming back to my brother, Mr. Rant Man himself, none other than Mr. Isaiah Tukes. He's been killing these rants every episode. Again, I never know what I'm getting. We never know. It's new to us, but we're not going to debate it. And so my brother gonna do it again. So starting now. Go, just give it to him.
Nearly one weekend, Black people in New Orleans, Louisiana struggled to recover from Hurricane Ida's devastating blow. Ida killed at least 11, dumped more than 13 inches of rain, and left whole neighborhoods underwater. The lack of leadership in New Orleans is really damaging to Black life, as they are the most neglected city in America that no one likes to talk about. Right now, they haven't had access to clean water. We're still in the middle of a pandemic where people couldn't work, and now the rent is due for the evacuated homes, and they have no power or running water. And you can't miss a payment because the eviction moratorium was canceled by the Supreme Court. I know personally people who have fled to different states, frightened of returning back to unknown damages, and awaiting any type of assistance from the government. And we cannot be the land of the free in a country with unlimited resources to help evacuate and place hundreds of thousands of immigrants in various parts of the world and make them comfortable, only to leave our Black citizens in Louisiana out into the streets. And that's that on that.
That's good. Again, we have to be the catalyst for change that we want to see within our community, within our state, within our country. And so we all have a part to play in that. So thank you, brother, for educating us once again with your rant.
Yeah.
All right, so Four Friends in the Book podcast. We just wrapped up this month's book, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. If you guys haven't read the book, please check it out. It's an awesome read. Like I said, if you love history, if you love African American history, if you just want to just kind of get a good story, from the journey of some elders and how they have traversed this life that they live. I mean, she literally covers their journey from life to death. And so it's a good read, good experience, and I encourage you guys to check it out. So, all right, so we're going to my brother Isaiah, man. Tell him about the book we're reading for next month.
Hey guys, please join us next time as we discuss our newest book, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Alyssa Cole is a New York Times bestseller and has written a phenomenon thriller that has a little bit of everything: history, mystery, humor, and conspiracy. You don't want to miss it. Laria, where can they tune in?
Every third Thursday of the month, you can come right here with your four friends, your favorite four friends, to talk about books.
Yes.
And we want you guys to follow us on all of our social media platforms. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Four Friends in the Book, and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, Four Friends in the Book. That way you won't miss any of the great content we put out throughout the week.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in with us. As always, let's read, let's learn, let's grow. Let's have a discussion here on Four Friends in the Book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.